BattleNet stats, and the great thing about this is it's everyone playing the ladder. There's a lot of players who might not post on forums, a lot of great players, but we have all their games on BattleNet. And this takes the subjectivity out of what they're doing. A lot of players, if you ask someone, how did your last 30 games go? Most players probably couldn't answer that concisely. Even internally, we'll get someone coming up to us saying, man, I can't beat Protoss as Zerg. And we'll give them some advice, and then we'll go look at their match history, and we'll notice that they actually have a 70 win percentage in that situation. And it's not that they're trying to mislead us or anything like that. It's just players tend to remember their losses a lot more. And it's really hard to think back what happened in a bunch of your last games. So let's take a look at some BattleNet stats. And this is for North America across all leagues. So Terran versus Zerg, we can see that Terrans are edging out Zerg very slightly, 51-49 in favor of the Terrans. Protoss versus Terran, 53-47 in favor of the Protoss, still a really good number for us. And Protoss versus Zerg, 51-49 in favor of the Protoss. So I mean, these numbers all look great to me. I think we're done.
It's perfect.
We can just go home, right?
What could possibly go wrong with these numbers?
Let's see.
But with every other tool that we have, this has a huge downside as well. And the main reason for this is our matchmaker. Our matchmaker does an excellent job of matching two players that are evenly skilled that will go 50-50 against each other. However, the matchmaker doesn't know where the race imbalances are, so it doesn't take this into consideration. So in order for us to use these win percentages as a balanced tool, we actually have to know what the race win percentages are for each matchup when two equal levels players play and not with perfect matchmaking. So to explain how we get this actual number that we use, we have our math genius, Dr. Josh Menke.
Thanks, David. Yeah, exactly. The matchmaker is trying to make sure every player has a 50-50 win percentage, but it's also making sure every race has as close to a 50-50 win percentage as well. And so because of that, we can't really trust those raw race win percentages. So we have come up with an adjusted win percentage that accounts for the skill of the players. And not only that, we can use this to track the metagame day by day, week by week. We can know what Protoss versus Zerg looks like at the top level, at the middle, and at the bottom. And this is a great tool for us to be able to know what the current metagame really is. Now, you're probably all wondering, how is this possible? So to kind of boil this all down, we throw up the calculation here and just let you guys see that and use that whenever you want to understand how we do this.
You guys got that? Seems pretty basic, right?
I got it.
Pretty basic math, I think. Yeah.
Simple stuff.
Seriously, this is how we do it. I didn't throw on the how we handle the different levels of skill, but that'll give you guys a clear idea. Now, let's run through a simple example, though, of how we actually fit that equation there. So let's say we have two players. We've got a Zerg player and a Protoss player. Before the match, we kind of think Bob's probably the better player. We've seen him play other players. We've seen Frank play other players, so we kind of have an idea about their skill. We've also seen Zerg play against Protoss in the past, so we also have an idea that we think, in this case, that Zerg at this point is better than Protoss, slightly. So then we have those two teams play. We observed the results. We saw the Protoss player won the match. And so now we need to change what we think about the skill of both the players and the balance of the matchup.
Yeah,
so
with that cheesy Void Ray Rush, too. That's terrible. That's terrible. I can't believe he did that.
Yeah, we don't take into account how he did that.
It's terrible.
So here we go. Before we thought Bob was better by about 5%, but at the end of that, we're going to slightly update that, change what we think, and now we're thinking maybe Bob is only slightly better than Frank. And before we thought Zerg had a 3% advantage over Protoss, we're going to kind of back that off a little bit now because we just saw Zerg lose a match. And we do this over millions of matches, with hundreds of thousands of players. We don't really update win percentages. We're just showing this to make it easier. It's a much more complicated system than that. But this does give a flavor of how we're able to do this and get these adjusted win percentages that give us a more realistic view of what the race balance is.
So now that we know we have to factor in skill when we're looking at our BattleNet stats, let's look at the adjusted win percentage for North America, again across all leagues. So for Terran versus Zerg, Terrans are still doing pretty close against the Zerg, 51-49. This is a really good number for us. Protoss versus Zerg, 53-47 in favor of the Protoss. Now, a number 55, about 55-45 means there's no statistical evidence of imbalance. If that number starts going closer to 60-40, then that starts getting in our danger zone, and this is a number we definitely want to look at a little bit more. So Protoss versus Terran, what do you know? 60-40. This is definitely a number we're concerned about. So we're going to investigate this a little bit further, and we'll look at Diamond specifically in North America. So for Diamond, we have Terran versus Zerg, 49-51, still a good number. Protoss versus Zerg, 55-45. It's borderline, but we still consider this a pretty solid number. And Protoss versus Terran, you can see it's a lot better, 53-47 in favor of the Protoss. Now, this does agree with what we're seeing across all leagues, but it's a much better number. So we're still going to want to look at this a little bit further.
So before we get into the race win percentages of Korea, I just want to talk about the Korean region in general. Korea, we've seen in the past, they always lead the world in terms of strategies. So for example, we've seen in the past that highest level players in Korea always develop these strategies that, say, top American or European players tend to follow. And for example, just internally for myself as well, a lot of people come to ask me if I have a +10 APM advantage just because I'm a Korean person. And even though we haven't really scientifically proven this or anything, but questions like these arise because there's the highest concentration of top players in Korea. So we saw in the one of the examples we saw in the beta was in Korea, during the beta at the highest levels, Zerg was dominating Protoss. However, in US or even in Europe, this was not the case. It was actually the opposite. Protoss was dominating Zerg. So we took a look at the strategies that are being used. And in Korea, the top Zerg players were using this mass spine crawler plus mass mutalist strategy against Protoss that Protoss was just unable to beat. And within a matter of a couple weeks, we saw that American and European Zerg players were actually using the exact same strategy. And a couple weeks after that, we saw the stats kind of align across all regions. So let's take a look at the stats for Korea across all leagues. Terran versus Zerg, Terrans have a 4% advantage, which is pretty good. Protoss versus Zerg, Protoss has a 1% advantage, which is even better. And if we take a look at Protoss versus Terran, Protoss has a 6% advantage. So this number actually agrees with what we saw in North America. But let's take a greater look at Protoss versus Terran in specific. So we've just seen that Protoss in Korea, Protoss has a 6% advantage. In North America, Protoss had a 10% advantage. But if we look specifically at Diamond Korea, which is the highest level right now, the relationship is actually flipped. Terrans have a 4% advantage over Protoss. And we think the reason for this is because top Terran Korean players are really amazing with their Stimpack kiting micro as well as multitasking medevac drops all over the place and perfectly microing all these things all together at once. But as I said before, we can't just go by our past experiences, so let's take a look at our other tools to see if that's what they say also.
So Battle.net has identified a problem for us very clearly. We can see that we're seeing Protoss dominating Terrans almost across the board, except in this one place that makes us nervous. This one place that we've seen in the past can be different, and it may change our strategies. So if we look at our other tools, and now to go to the community. Now we've got about a dozen guys, I think, all over the world, guys and gals, who are gathering feedback for us from our own websites and from languages none of us speak, right? And gathering feedback from fans, from other forums, other websites that are made by the fans, and they're bringing this to us as best they can, trying to give us a summary of kind of what people are talking about, what the most popular threads are, and what people are actually saying. So the community says that Terran is too strong. The community says we should probably nerf Marauders. This is something we've been hearing since mid-beta, that Marauders might be too powerful. Nerfing Stim, usually focused again on the Marauder, though sometimes on the Marine. Now, none of this agrees with the stats, except in that one league in Korea.
So if we look at our mid-combat tool, Marauder Stim is not overpowered. Now, you do get a lot of speed movement out of it, but the actual bonus damage you get from using Marauder Stim versus the health you pay to use it, it's very borderline. We've tried a couple small tweaks on this, and it actually, in some situations, it's actually bad to use Stim. Another situation is where Marauders against Zerg, they're very borderline. A couple small tweaks to Marauders, and Roaches start beating the Marauders. And this is not what we want. We want the Marauder to be a counter unit to the Zerg. And of course, if we go by our make combat tool, Marine Stim is one of the most broken things out there. If we went by this only, we would have to nerf Marines, and according to our play experience and what the community is saying something, I don't think this is what we want to do.
So let's take a look at what pros have to say about Protoss versus Terran. We actually asked 5 different pros of the 5 of the best Protoss and Terran pros out there to see what they have to say about this matchup. And the first player actually says Terran wins 80% of the time versus Protoss. The second player says TOS has no chance versus Terran. The third player disagrees by saying Templars with the energy upgrade is too much. And the fourth person says Terran has no chance versus the Phoenix plus Colossi combination. And finally, the last person says PvT feels very balanced. So 2 people have said Terran is overpowered. The other 2 players have said Protoss is overpowered. And 1 person says the balance is perfect. But it's very rare for us to get these kinds of mixed opinions. So there must be something going on besides just one strategy being overpowered or one race just dominating the other race. So let's take a look at another tool.
So this is where it gets really exciting. We think we might be in a situation where it's not down to just 1 or 2 units. It might be a large combination of factors. And depending on how you choose to play, you're having a great time in this matchup, crushing your opponent, or you're getting rolled, depending on what race you're playing. So let's look at our sort of last line of defense here. It's our personal experience. We do find Terrans to be very strong at the beginning of the game. I often get run over early on with stim timing pushes. It wrecks my day every time. I have massive amounts of nerd rage every time it happens. We do see, in many cases, the Protoss being a little strong in the endgame. If the Terrans can hold out, it seems like a combination of Colossus and maybe even more importantly, Storm suddenly gives Protoss an advantage. And this leads us to believe that there might be a more fundamental design problem here. That while we could maybe get to a place here pretty soon where technically they're going 50-50, all that really matters is, can the Terrans win in the first 12 minutes or not? And if they don't win, then the Protoss win. And while I suppose we could say that's 50-50 good enough, that's not the game we want to make, and I'm pretty sure that's not the game you guys want to play. So that means we do have to look at this issue. We have to try to figure out exactly what the combination is that's causing our problems.
So going forward, we're definitely going to keep looking at the Protoss versus Terran matchup. We think we identified a problem between our Battle.net stats and all our other tools, so we want to keep looking at this matchup closer. And one thing we're definitely going to look at regarding this matchup is stim balance on Marines and Marauders. We do think it gives the Terran a little bit of too much of an advantage early in the game, and they're probably winning a lot of their games with this strategy. But of course, we're going to look at Storm balance and how it affects the late game. I know personally, once I have both High Templar upgrades, I got warp gates, I can warp anywhere across the map, I really don't have that much trouble against Terran. And we're going to look at a number of other things, Thor repair, how the SCVs can be untargetable, and as you guys keep bringing us new issues and as we notice new things in our games, we'll continue to add to our list.
Yeah, so I want to thank everybody again for all the feedback you've given us. Everybody out there who's posted, everybody out there who's never posted but has played a game has helped us at some point make some decisions on the balance. And that's it for our presentation. Let's get the questions started.
Hello. Starcraft is amazing. I love it.
Thank you, sir.
One of the things I thought was peculiar was the fact that there's no option to not play online. Do you see that coming in the future to where you'll be able to work on achievements offline, then link up to Battle.net and have the stats queue up?
It's possible, and it's something we talked about quite a bit, whether we want to do that or not. Ultimately, it let us more exposed to people hacking the achievements if they could do them offline and then log them in, but I'm not actually sure how secure we are now anyway. But it's definitely something we can look at. We obviously can play offline now, as you say, but we don't give you achievement access. But I'll take it as feedback, and we'll definitely talk about it. Thank you.
So the Mutalisk seems a little bit like...
Weak?
Well, the Thor and the Marine both hard counter the Mutalisk. And the whole reason they gave the Thor this blast damage was to counter the Mutalisk. Maybe like give the Mutalisk +3 to light. What do you think, guys? Think about that.
Well, I think we feel, I mean, you guys can back me up or say whatever you want about this. I think we feel like the Mutalisk's speed is his greatest asset. His ability to be pretty much wherever he wants to be and hunt whatever he wants to hunt makes him a very dangerous weapon. And we're also very nervous about any weapon that can attack air and ground. It's a very flexible weapon in any unit's arsenal. Something that moves faster than almost anything in the game and can attack air and ground.